imagine meeting that darkness quite often, more often than the average person, I guess, and that being kind of a normal thing. And because that would be too much for most people, Scorpios kind of keep that to themselves, and that's why it's kind of hard for probably some Scorpios to open up and to reveal their true self, because that does come with light and dark. Some people can't handle the dark. If you want to become your best self, Scorpios, you're going to have to Scorpio. In my opinion, one of the most misunderstood zodiac signs out of all the zodiac signs. Scorpio is not a what you see is what you get kind of sign. Because first of all, you don't really see anything in the beginning, because Scorpios are super private. There's a multiple layers that you will probably have to get through, which will probably take some time to actually uncover who that Scorpio is, to see who they are, to see the real them. If only they trust you, or ever get to the point to where they trust you enough to open that up to you. Because Scorpios, I think of Scorpios like a layered cake. There's so many layers to them. They're so deep. Scorpio is a water sign. So water signs are usually emotional, intuitive. They're very big on energy. They're able to really read energy well, or they're probably easily affected by energy. Energy is important for a lot of water signs. Water signs usually lead with their heart before like their minds. Like they lead with their hearts. I mean, they obviously can use their minds, but like their heart, their feelings is what they usually like react to. So Scorpio's a water sign. It's a fixed sign. A good way to understand fixed is like it's not as easily able to move. Like once it's set in its mind or set in its feelings, it can be hard to sway them. And another easier way to say it is fixed signs are usually stubborn. So Scorpios definitely can be stubborn. And the fact that it's a water sign and it's a Scorpio kind of triples that that stubbornness, because your emotions really get deep into that, you know? So Scorpios can be stubborn sometimes. The first things that come to my mind when I think about Scorpio, if I could just like throw out some random adjectives, are definitely intense. And you can probably sense the intensity, like energy wise, when you first meet a Scorpio, and you may, depending on what that Scorpio has in their chart. Also, by the way, this is for people who are Scorpios or people who have Scorpio in their birth chart. If you're a Scorpio, then this will resonate with you. But if you also have Scorpio in your chart, like in your major points, like if you have a Scorpio moon sign or Scorpio rising even, or Scorpio Mars, like some of these things may resonate with you. Speaking of Scorpio Mars, really quick before going into the adjectives of Scorpio and the intensity, I kind of want to, the last thing I forgot to say is what planet rules Scorpio. So with each of the signs, there's like a planet that rules it that tells you more about the sign. There are 2 signs that rule Scorpio, depending on who you ask. With astrology, there's a such thing as like traditional astrology, which is like astrology in like the order, like when astrology just got discovered, I guess you would say. And then there's more modernized astrology. So with traditional astrology, Mars rules Scorpio. Um, and with modern astrology, Pluto rules Scorpio. I like to look at both, but I think Mars really describes Scorpio well because Mars represents taking action, going after what you want. And I believe Scorpios are really, really good at that. Almost to maybe like it could be like a really good thing. Like they have that confidence and that drive and that like sustainability, or like that wanting to get down to the bottom of something so much that they'll go for it. Or it can be more of like an obsessiveness, where it can be an obsessive thing, which could be also good, but it can get bad, if you really want something and you want it out of and you like obsess over whatever that thing is that you want. And so Mars has to do with going after what you want, taking action. Mars is also very passionate, and obviously Scorpio is very passionate. And once again, when you mix that passion with water, that's like a deep passion. So and that can mean all aspects of life, so having that deep passion, being passionate about some things that you really either believe in or want, maybe very deeply passionate, like about whatever you're feeling. So, and then Mars also represents sexual things, like having your sexual drive and everything like that. And every sign rules like a certain body part. And Scorpio, I'm sure a lot of people have heard this probably. So Scorpio rules the genitals. So I'm sure this is not a surprise, because I feel like Scorpio is always deemed as like the most sexual sign, which is not far off. I mean, obviously, that's a very important thing for them. So, yeah, Mars rules sexual desire. So, yes, that is obviously important thing for Scorpios, but that's not what they're all about. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that the ruler is Mars. Um, but yeah, so the adjectives, going back to intensity, so Scorpio can be intense. And like I said, whether that is like the energy that they give off, or when you talk to them, they can be intense, especially if they have a Scorpio Mercury or anything like that. If they have a Scorpio Venus, they can be intense love, like their love can be very intense, maybe even obsessive. Oh, if you have a Scorpio Venus, yeah, that can be like intensity, obsession, jealous, all the things, which can tie to some Scorpio tendencies. But all Scorpios are different, and just understand when I'm talking about Scorpio, and if you don't resonate with some of these things, it's totally okay. That's why astrology goes deeper than just your sun sign, because you may have other things in your chart, and you may have some Scorpio, or you only may have one Scorpio, and other things in your chart may kind of water down maybe your Scorpio, or like give you your own type of Scorpio identity, So just take what resonates with you. So yeah, intense, passionate, like we said, misunderstood, private, very private. Well, this is not really this is like not a one word thing, but I would just say darkness, and death, connection to darkness and death. And that doesn't have to mean that doesn't have to mean actual death. It could be, or it couldn't, or whatever, but just like having some connection to darkness, because ultimately Scorpio is the sign of transformation. And that's another adjective that I would like to say. Scorpios, this is like one of the strengths of Scorpios, and probably one of the top strengths of Scorpios, and that's that they are the transformers. And no, I'm not speaking of cars. They are transformation is a big thing for Scorpios throughout a lot of Scorpios' lives. Um, Transformation will be a very key key thing. Um, and it ties to their depth, them being so deep, and it is a very important thing for all Scorpios to go through many transitions in their lives. I mean, like, once again, going back to that layered cake, those layers are all different parts of the Scorpio, and they're always having to like transform, rebirth, go through like a death and a rebirth. And once again, when I say death, it's more like energetic thing, like how in my last episode I talked about like death, like an ego death, and that's a very Scorpio thing, having to look at your ego, having to look at your feelings, and to probably go through some hard, tough times that are actually necessary for you to become that best version of yourself. Which is not easy, obviously. And that's usually happens internally because once again, Scorpios are very private. So they usually deal with a lot of things by themselves. And speaking of that, another thing I would say about Scorpios is fear of vulnerability. Scorpios are afraid to get hurt. They're I think Scorpios they love deep. They are deep, people, and they are intense, and they experience a lot of feelings internally as this because they are the transformers, and the transformation is a big thing, and they go through this death and rebirth, and they have this connection to darkness, and that doesn't have to mean that is not like evil. It's more of like here's a great example. I literally just went to a meditation class. Yes, I went to a meditation class today. I was gonna like snap a picture just to show proof to you guys. Just be like, hey, I went to my first like class thing, but I went with my mom, and anyways, in the meditation class, we were talking about like how everybody is a mix of light and darkness. And a lot of people are afraid to see that dark part of them. A lot of people are afraid to face the darkness in ourselves, but it's necessary because through the darkness, through facing that darkness, we're able to get to the light. Okay. So I think that's a great way to think about Scorpios. Imagine meeting that darkness quite often, more often than the average person, I guess. And that being kind of a normal thing. So, and because most people can't really, that would be too much for most people, then, Scorpios kind of keep that to themselves. And that's why it's kind of hard for probably some Scorpios to open up and to reveal their true self, because that does come with light and dark. Some people can't handle the dark. And yeah, Scorpios' feelings run deep. And I think one of their biggest fears is getting hurt, opening themselves up and getting hurt, exposing their darkness and their everything, even who they are, because they're private, opening themselves up, becoming vulnerable, and getting hurt. So yeah, so fear of vulnerability, but that's also a very important thing, that like transforming, learning to go through those transformations and understand that that is just a process. That's just something that something that Scorpios that's good for you, even though it's not always. My camera died as always. Yeah, what was I talking about? Yeah, learning to be vulnerable is a big thing that Scorpios, if you want to become your best self, Scorpios, You're going to have to learn to become vulnerable. Because you aren't supposed to go through things alone. As much as it feels safe to you, you're going to have to learn to get comfortable with being vulnerable. And yeah, that does mean finding people who you feel safe enough to do that with. But also trusting that if you do have somebody near you or, in your life that it has voice to you, that have shown to you that they are there for you and loyal, not to keep pushing that person away by closing off or not, taking that extended hand that they have repeatedly offered to you. Um, so, um, so yeah, let me think. Was there anything more transfer? Oh, so going back to the one more thing I want to say about, going back to the Transformers. So once again, transformation is a big thing that Scorpios will have to go through in their lives. They're going to go through many deaths and rebirths, kind of like, what do you call it? Like, what is the animal that gets a new shell that like sheds its old shell and builds a new shell? I can't even think about it. Oh, there you go. A snake. It's like shedding your old skin. And you're going to be shedding a lot of layers to your skin and getting new skin again. But one of the, I think, gifts of Scorpios, besides them being intuitive and being able to read people very well, that is a thing. Scorpios, you guys are intuitive, and it's something that you can, if you kind of learn to build that like it's a muscle, you can really tap into that part of yourself, and really build a connection with your intuition and all the things. But yeah, so it's not a coincidence that you are you feel like you're very good, or you may feel like you're gifted in being able to read people very well. So yeah, so one of your gifts, though, one of Scorpio's gifts is that they are not only meant to go through transformation for themselves, but they are the transformers, and they're here to transform others as well. Which I think is a really great quality. I do believe that it's not easy, okay? It may seem like, oh, cool. But as most Scorpios would know, that process of transformation is not pretty. It's not always sunshines and butterflies. Like we said, there's a light and a dark to that. And with transformation, you do have to face that darkness. So although if you, what would I say, dare I say, lucky enough to have a Scorpio in your life that helps you go through your own transformation for you to become your best self, you gotta, I guess, be open to the ride, the journey. So yeah, know that about yourself, Scorpio. You are not you're not going through your own transformation for nothing. If you ever get to the point to where you feel like you don't have a purpose, your purpose is to transform other people. Use what you've learned through your own transformations to help other people with that. So get comfortable with their own darknesses and get through that. So I think this has been a longer video than I was gonna do for Scorpios. I mean, I could say the typical things like we said, I think I do believe, and I've heard a lot, that there's like the evolved Scorpio and the unevolved Scorpio, and the unevolved Scorpio is probably the type of Scorpio that you probably hear a lot of people talk about, which is jealous, obsessive, all the things. A lot of Scorpios, like I don't know if I said this already, but have like struggle with trusting people. Um and it usually takes a long time for you to trust a Scorpio. I mean, for a Scorpio to trust you. uh but just know that that's nothing against you. That's just their own things that they have to work through. And I get it. I can understand that. I can understand having that much depth and things that within you and things that a lot of people can't handle, because once again, when we talk about that light and dark, a lot of people can't handle the dark part. It's too much for people. It's too intense. So I do understand being wary to open up, and not know what the reaction of the other person may be. But there are people out there that are meant for you for that. So, but yeah, that's like the unevolved. That's the young, probably Scorpio who's trying to figure themselves out. Young Scorpio is, I think that's where probably all the, yeah. But as you get older, and if you learn if you allow yourself to transform and you learn through those transformations, and I really do think, like, I think astrology will benefit greatly from Scorpios, because like you're able to understand why you are the way you are, maybe why you think the way you think, and maybe because you probably think it is deep. It is. You're probably like, wow, I wonder if anybody else is going through this, or I don't know. I think it's affirming, or it may feel good to know, like, that's just because of who you are. Like, that's the beauty of you. Like, you're not weird. That's just who you were born in this world to be. Like, that's not a weird, that's normal, that type of thing. And how to use or deal with those like deep emotions, and maybe the light and dark, and